and get this party started here. This is the Implementing the Families First Coronavirus Response Act training. Before we get started, though, I'm going to take the opportunity just to tell a few of you guys more about Prospera and what we do. I know a lot of you guys know what we already do already, but please go ahead and use the chat box to introduce yourself. And actually, you know what, since it's such a small group, go ahead and I'm going to have everybody just introduce themselves and then kind of what they do exactly, what your company does. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Kari. Go ahead and just introduce yourself and what your company does.
Perfect. My name is Kari Gras, and I own Together Consulting. We are a full-service human resources and payroll consulting firm, and we offer all of those services to any business in the area.
Thanks, Kari. Bree, go ahead.
Bree, I am owner of Olive Belly and Maven's Market. I do food manufacturing and retail, especially food retail.
Thank you, Bree. Natalie, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Natalie. I have Tree Line Coffee Roasters. We're a specialty roastery in Bozeman with 2 cafes.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Jenna, can you introduce yourself to the group as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sorry I'm a little bit late and kind of having some technical issues here, but my name's Jenna and I work at Meridian Boutique and I'm the general manager there. And I've currently, with COVID-19, I've have asthma. So Haley, our owner, has been really great about allowing me to work from home. And I've been kind of switched to a new role as far as managing our website. So that's what I've been currently working on, that. And then also our employee handbook, kind of revamping that.
Okay. Great time to redo that employee handbook when you got a little bit of time. So that's great. Jenna, if you can rename your screen name to Jenna at Meridian, that would be helpful.
Oh, yes.
Just so everybody knows. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to have everyone mute yourselves, but please feel free to chime in. This is a super small group. We're still expecting a few more to join us, and sometimes people are having technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and get started here.
Oh, we missed Anna.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Anna. I didn't even see you. Oh, Anna, sorry.
I was just going to be a fly on the wall anyway. No, I'm Anna, work for Big Sky Landscaping up in Big Sky, and yeah, excited to learn something about a lot of HR, a lot of questions from workers. So yeah, it's good.
Let's do this. Okay. Well, really quickly, Prospera, we are a nonprofit organization based in Bozeman, but we do economic development group in Southwest Montana. So we cover Gallatin and Park County. So if you ever need any help with your business right now, especially grants, loans, we're working a ton on the PPP, forgiveness stuff, all that good stuff. Know that our services are available for everyone. You can be a man, a woman, you can be a member, a non-member. How we pay our bills basically is through a membership. And so we kind of consider it like a pay it forward. Like if you support us, we're going to support thousands of other people on your behalf. So this year alone, I actually just crunched some numbers. We're only 7 months in and we've helped just under 1,900 people this year, which is huge numbers for us. Last year, all of last year, we helped out 1,500 people in 12 months. So we are way ahead of where we were last year. We are, our team has been really busy working a lot of overtime. So anyway, we are here to help in any way that you need it. I wanted to quickly just go over a couple different loan and grant opportunities that are still available. When I'm still talking about these loans and grants, people are still not applying for them and there's all this money available. If you are affected by COVID in any way, I want to make sure that you're taking advantage of these opportunities. So I'm only going to take 3 minutes to go through this, but you guys attending today could maybe be helpful in your own business, but then also helping to educate your friends that are other business owners as well. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. Know that today's presentation is being recorded, and I'm going to send you a PDF of everything that we're talking about so you don't have to frantically write down everything we're talking about today, okay? The first loan program grant program that I'm going to talk about is through the Montana Department of Commerce. They have a whole coronavirus relief help program that you can apply for right on their website. The first one is, I know this sounds ridiculous, but meat processing infrastructure grant. I don't know if you've heard this, but the price of meat is going to be going way up. And so the Montana Department of Commerce is investing in meat processing. I'm actually helping 3 different meat shops apply for this grant, and it is huge. You can apply for up to $150,000. So it's been a huge game changer potentially for people. This bottom grant is the Montana Business Adaptation Program, and this is a program that is basically helping small businesses with less than 50 people with anything to help them keep going. So cleaning supplies, work equipment, PPE gear, those plexiglass shields that are at grocery stores. If you like, especially Olive Valley and Treeline, if you guys have had to implement any new things like this is a reimbursement grant program. It's up to $5,000. You can apply. You just need to submit your receipts and then you'll get reimbursed. This has been awesome for people that have bought decals, anything like that. So that's available. And again, if you have questions along the way, just unmute yourself and just interrupt me, okay? We're here for you today, okay? Next one, the Montana Department of Commerce Montana Business Stabilization Program. These are those $10,000 grants that are out there. These are to help you with working capital for your small business, pay for payroll, rent, accounts payable, debt service, anything to help your business to keep going. The money can, if you got an EIDL grant or EIDL loan or PPP, this has nothing to do with it. You can still apply for this money. This is through the Montana Department of Commerce, has nothing to do with the SBA. So even if you've gotten those other relief programs, I still recommend that you apply for this $10,000. Nonprofits are not eligible for this one though. The one down here on the bottom is the Montana Innovation Grant Program. If you know of any businesses that really pivoted during this time, they can, like for instance, I know a lot of people who pivoted their manufacturing to help out with PPE gear or make masks or something like that. You can apply for up to $25,000 to help you with that kind of refurbishment that you did to any equipment or to your business to adapt. So that's a $25,000 grant. This next one is the Emergency Housing Assistance Program. I am dealing with a lot of business owners that are kind of struggling to pay mortgages, pay rents, security deposits, they're moving, things like that. If you need assistance, know that this housingmt.gov website will be able to help you. Again, you end up applying on that website, but you can go to the coronavirus website and they will direct you there. But know that there are certain limitations, but it has been really helpful for a lot of our clients and business owners. The one down here on the bottom is the Stay Connected grant. This is to help reduce social isolation for any Montana seniors. So a lot of my clients that have family members and senior center cares, or they work at, or they live at home by themselves, they can apply for this money to get computers, to get programs to come and take care of them if they need assistance during this COVID thing and their business has been struggling or their income has been down because of COVID. So know that those programs are available as well. This next one is the last one. This is the Telework Assistance Grant. This is for purchasing equipment for people that have disabilities so that they can work remotely. So know that these, I know that someone just said they had asthma. I don't know how far the disability is, but this might qualify actually as asthma. Things that would make it so that you cannot go to the office, like asthma. I know that some people that have had cancer have applied for this. So know that this is available. It's $1,000 to help purchase equipment towards helping with things like that. Any questions about those before I move forward? You can interrupt me. I am going to move on. I know that there's a question in the chat box here, so I'm just going to look at it here. Oh, is there a deadline for the adaptation program? That's from Natalie. Natalie, there is not a deadline right now. They're going to do it until they run out of money, and they just put a new stash of money in there like 2 weeks ago. So, but I wouldn't milk it. I would definitely get it in there. If you want to get that access to that grant, I would submit it as soon as you can. It's a pretty easy grant to apply for, and there's no grant reporting really. So it's a kind of a no-brainer if it's a thought for you. Last but not least, EIDL. I want to make sure people are applying for these advances and loans. The advance is a grant. These EIDL loans and grants, they closed up, I don't know, about a month and a half ago or so, and they just reopened this about 2 weeks ago. So if you did not apply in the first round, I definitely recommend that you apply in the second round. At least get access to those advances, which are the grants, which are not, you do not need to return that money. And then if you think about the loans, I actually have a lot of clients that are taking advantage of these loans to be able to get really low cost access to capital financing. You guys, this is 3.75% interest over 30 years. This is a no-brainer. So if you apply for this loan, I mean, apply for it, you do start accruing interest right away, but the payments don't start for a year. And then in the paperwork, it tells you what your monthly fee is, and it's not that much, typically, even if for a $150,000 loan. So I am recommending every single business owner to apply for this, because it could be that money that you need to be able to take your business to the next level and leverage it. And you just can't use the money for the same exact thing that you use the PPP money for. But once you are done with the PPP money, you can use it for that payroll after that. So know that that's available for you as well. Again, oh, whoops, I apologize. Is it June 30th? Yep, it expires today, the Paycheck Protection Program. That's the one through the banks. There were a couple new grants that just came out through the Montana Arts Council. If you know of any artists that, or jewelry makers, or anybody that typically goes to art shows as their, and uses kind of art venues as their primary way of getting money, there are some new grant programs just for artists specifically through the Montana Arts Council. And then if anybody knows any daycare facilities, there are some special grants specific for daycare facilities as well. If you want to learn more about any grant programs, please join our mailing list at prosperamt.org. I am sending out a lot of emails about grants, grant opportunities. Even if they don't help you, they might help out a friend or a peer. And that's the best way to be a good friend, is just to share information like this. Now, a couple different Prospera updates. We have a couple classes coming up here. We have 2 weeks from now, we have Employment 101 for employees. That would be for employees, not employers. We have one for employers coming up as well. I think I just skipped that slide here. Oh, no, I missed it somehow. Don't we have the employers one coming up too?
July 7th.
Okay, somehow that did not make this on the slide. I apologize. And then we have our Prospera monthly member meetup. If you're interested in getting involved, we do networking events with breakouts. Lots of leads are being passed at those events, so we'd love to have you there. And then we have our women-owned business tours coming up. We're going to have one at Triple Tree here in Bozeman on July 30th. We're going to be social distancing, but we're going to be, again, networking with people out in nature. So that's going to be a fun one. And then Kari actually is going to be leading one at Ouzel Falls for us in August or September, Kari?
I feel like it was in September.
September, I think. So
yeah.
Stay tuned for that too. That's gonna be a fun one up in Big Sky. And then our big fundraiser is the Prosperity Party. All those funds go to the Montana Women's Business Center, which is a program at Prospera. And if you're interested in getting involved or donating, we're looking for auction donations and sponsorships. We're going to be doing not one big event, but 6 kind of mini events in one night. So that'll be fun too. Again, we're here to help. Somehow my slides got out of order. Apologize for that. We have memberships that if you want to get involved, we offer memberships. We have 800 online classes available if people are looking for that. We have a new training called the Paycheck Protection Program Loan Forgiveness Application. It's a self-paced class. Now that people have gotten the PPP, they're struggling on actually filling out the paperwork. So know that that class is an ongoing class you can take for free. We have an intro to do-it-yourself websites with Tessa, who owns Hattie Rex. She's going to be talking about choosing the best website platform for your business. So that's a free training. And then there's that Unemployment 101 for business owners. That's a really great training with Kari. So apologize that these got out of order. I was working on this at midnight last night.
Oh my goodness.
And then there you go. How to find our services is our website right there. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kari. Thanks, Kari.
Awesome. Thanks, Susie.
Thanks.
That's so great. I love hearing everything that you're doing. Prospera is so amazing. It's basically how I got my business started. So I'm always appreciative to hear about your services and what you guys are doing for just the area and community in general. It's very much appreciated. So, all right. So let's dive in. Again, kind of just echoing what Susie has kind of already talked about. If at any point you guys have a question as I'm going through this, since we're a much smaller group now than we kind of originally thought there would be, you know, feel free to kind of like unmute or, you know, give me one of like, hey, wait, like time out, like I have a question. And I'll certainly, you know, kind of like stop in the moment and we'll certainly, you know, discuss whatever is needed or whatever question that's coming up in your mind. So this is really all about implementing this law into your business, into your operations. The FFCRA is the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. And, you know, it's still fairly new. It started in April, but At this point, I'm pretty well versed in all of the inner workings of the new law, but bear with me if I don't have an answer to your question. I'll certainly kind of get to it whenever I can. And this is kind of the categories or the criteria and the agenda of what I want to go over and cover today. So we're going to be talking about what is it and what it requires of you as an employer, what makes employees eligible, and we'll mainly focus on there's 2 types of leave. Under those 2 types of leave, there's 6 different specific reasons why you would be required to pay someone, and then how an employee can submit a request to have this type of leave or when they need to be paid through this new law, just how you would handle that situation. And then if you are required to pay the employees, how you get that tax credit for the 2 types of leave. And then I'll kind of talk about unemployment, because unemployment has kind of been playing a little bit of a piece to this. It's kind of a cog in the wheel, if you like that like that term. And we'll touch on how that will, I guess, play into how you're paying the employee and what the employee can expect. And then if we need to, we'll open it up to more questions. Perfect. So again, this is kind of the full title of this new law, and it was implemented April 1st, 2020, and it is set to expire December 31st of this year. Now, with everything that's been changing so much lately, I wouldn't be surprised if, depending on the state of the nation, as we go into the fall and we go into the winter, if there's going to be a little bit of an extension. That's certainly a possibility. But as of right now, it is set to expire on December 31st. So just know that it's not going to go on forever, but it is, here right now. So it is applicable to you if you have 500 employees or less. You're considered a small or mid-sized company. As an employer, what you're required to do is there is a new kind of notice of rights poster that I would recommend. I can either send it along to Susie, and when Susie sends out the slides, we can have it attached to that. And it's just a 1-page. It just kind of talks about what employees can expect as far as their rights. And if you are, it sounds like there might be a couple people who are working on their handbooks. You could probably craft a little bit of a policy, but I would definitely just maybe even if you already have a handbook in place, if you want to just kind of attach an addendum and say, reference these types of leave or this employer rights poster and do that sort of thing and have them kind of sign off on that extra addendum, especially since it's only going to be for a short period. Or you can just put in there that this law is going to expire at the end of 2020, if it does.
Kari, I might be jumping ahead, but does this apply to seasonal employment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The other thing that I do recommend is that if you have employees who are still working remotely, or you're offering that as an option, and they won't be in the workplace. So even if you post it like, hey, I posted it, I've done my job, here it is. I would also recommend just emailing it to your entire staff too. That might prompt some questions. They might have, they might kind of be like, oh, what is this? I don't really understand. And what does this actually mean? Hopefully you can kind of answer some of their questions after you've been educated yourself today. But if not, at least they know what their rights are. And then you can also post it in the workplace. That way you're just covering your bases. So someone doesn't say, well, no one ever told me, or anything like that. And this is paid leave for current employees. Like if you've had to lay someone off, or if you've had to kind of downsize your business because of lost revenue or things like that, that's always something. But if employees were currently employed and they were unable to work or telework because of COVID, we'll go into a little bit more of the reasons here in just a couple minutes, but that's the overall basis of you had work available and they couldn't work or telework because of a COVID related reason. And then finally, I'll just, as always, as any HR person would tell you, is just make sure you document and keep good records of the documentation. We'll talk a little bit more about that too, but yeah. You want to go to the next, perfect. So this is kind of where I'm going to keep you. I'm going to kind of keep you organized into these two main categories. So we have like paid sick leave, and then we have the emergency family medical leave. Some of you may already know about family medical leave, and this is kind of, I guess, an addition to that. Even if your business isn't subject to FMLA or Family Medical Leave Act, you are subject to this emergency family medical leave. And I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics. But let's talk first about the column on the left, that paid sick leave. This is where the majority of, if your employees are testing positive or do get sick or are getting exposed to someone, this is most likely where they're going to fall, is under this category. So it's someone who's currently employed, whether they're full-time or part-time. There's no waiting period for this type of pay, and you'll pay them for 2 weeks. And basically how you would pay them, it would be based, if they're full-time and they normally work an average of 40 hours a week, you would pay them that way. Or if they're part-time, you're just going to figure out their average pay if they're part-time. A lot of times what I've been telling some of my clients currently is, if they have a set schedule, and let's say they work three days a week, we're going to pay them for those 3 days a week because that's typically what they've always worked and what they've normally worked. So that's just the paid sick leave side of things. Now when we move over to the other side, under the emergency family medical leave, those employees needed to be employed for a minimum of 30 calendar days. So it can't be someone that's started within the last 2 weeks. There is a 2-week waiting period for this type of pay, which sometimes people qualify for the paid sick leave first and then maybe transition into the emergency family medical leave. So that I guess that 2-week wait period, that's why I put in there, can be paid under sick leave. But it's a total of 12 weeks or just 10 weeks paid, if that makes sense, because they have that 2-week waiting period and then they move into 10 weeks that are paid. There's just one qualifying reason for this type of leave, and I'll show you what that is. But just so you know, it's a little bit more limiting. So, a lot of people see that I have to pay someone for 10 weeks, like gives them heart palpitations. It's okay. It's very limited as far as the reason, and it's only, when we'll talk about, it's reduced pay. It's not a full pay. But then that pay is also calculated kind of that same if they're full-time, if they're part-time, if you're paying them based on schedule or not. So does anyone have any questions on that? I mean, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, but just generally speaking, does that feel pretty good? Okay.
So Carrie, the scenario would be like, we had an employee that said that they couldn't come because they had coronavirus. Is that the best scenario? Is that the scenario here? Or is this someone who is going to be watching their children because their children are sick?
I'm actually going to go into that here in just the next couple of slides because those are the qualifying reasons. So yeah, perfect question for sure. So this is where we kind of start our qualifying reasons. There's 6 total, and the reason why I've chunked them up into 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6 is because they're paid differently. And so reasons 1, 2, and 3 are paid at a regular rate. So we've got someone who is subject to a federal or state isolation or quarantine. When Governor Bullock came out and said, everyone's got to stay at home, if you can't telework, businesses have to shut down. When he did that, that is where everyone kind of fell into that category. Now, for a lot of us, that was all kind of happening back in March before this law actually took effect. Some of it did kind of go over into April, but for the most part, that's where that quarantine, and if we ever get back to something like that, if hopefully we don't, but if we are told again that all the businesses have to shut down, everyone's got to go back home and self-isolate and quarantine, that is where this law would really come into effect. Fingers crossed we don't go there. So reason number 2 would be, let's say I test positive and I'm told by my doctor and or Gallatin County Health Department that I need to stay at home in quarantine because of my positive test. That's where reason number 2 would come into play. And then I'm going to come back to my employer. Obviously, I'm going to be communicating with you as your employer, and I'm going to say, hey, I can't come to work. And this is the great part, is that you don't want them to come to work because they're sick. So you want to encourage them and kind of help them get educated on this so they know that, like, no, I really have to come to work because I need the money. And I was out of work for 4 weeks or however long, but no, actually we need for you to stay at home and we have a way to pay you. It's not going to be their pay time off or their vacation or they're sick. It's going to be through this new law. So that's really good. It's encouraging. Oh, sorry, Susie, can you go back just one more? Yeah, sorry, I forgot number 3. And then if they're experiencing symptoms and they're seeking a medical diagnosis, I actually just had this happen a couple weeks ago where an employee of a client that I work with, she was exposed to her friend tested positive. So she did the right thing. She isolated and she got her test. And I was able to actually pay her while she was waiting for those results. And then while she had to quarantine. Because if you have to quarantine because you're exposed to someone, it is a 14-day or a 2-week period. That's why the law coincides with how they're asking people to isolate and quarantine, because of that incubation period of COVID, if that makes sense. Okay, now the next slides. Okay, so this is 4, 5, and 6, and then I'll talk about who gets paid what, because there's also a lot of specifics in that information too. So reason number 4, Natalie, I'll get to your question here in this slide right now. So reason number 4, if you're having to stay home and care for an individual who is sick or quarantined, let's say your spouse or a child, or say you care for a parent who lives in your home and you have to stay home in order to care for them, there's no one else who can do that, that would fall under reason number 4. And that is certainly a reason why you would be able to stay home. So reason number 5 is the only qualifying reason for that second column. If you remember, that emergency family medical leave is reason number 5. And that is, number 5 is the 2-week waiting period. And it is, all of these are a reduced pay amount. It's not a full paycheck. So reason number 5, if they have to care for a minor child or someone who's home from any kind of childcare, I mean, everyone's out for the summer. So, you know, I know that some options are still available as far as childcare is concerned, but this is the only one that qualifies for the emergency family medical leave. And then if you're just experiencing substantial conditions defined, and that HHS is that Health and Human Services. So let's just say, because earlier on, I think they've gotten a lot better, but earlier on, if you didn't actually have symptoms or symptoms that they've recognized as related to COVID, a lot of times people were still getting denied a test. I don't think that's happening anymore, but they created reason number 6. If for some reason I was feeling like I had a cough and I was getting a sore throat or anything like that, I could come to you and say, I was denied a test, but I really feel like I have some symptoms. I just want to stay home to be safe so I don't get anyone else sick. And I'm sure you'd be like, yeah, we would really appreciate that. Thank you. Please don't come to work and get everyone else sick, because nobody wants that either. So those are the six different types, the 6 different reasons. And then on the next slide, we'll go into those different pay types. So I've kept the same columns just so hopefully people can still track. So again, we've got the paid sick leave. You are paying them for the total of the 2 weeks, just based on the hours that they normally work. If it's reasons 1 through 3, then it's going to be a regular pay. You're going to pay them how you normally would pay them. Most of the software out there that I've seen, even QuickBooks, they have a special code that they've built into the system. And you would use these codes if you're paying them. A lot of times it's going to be an abbreviation of FFCRA, or it's going to be like a paid sick leave, a PSL, or I've even seen them use the EFML. So just know that depending on what kind of software you're using, just make sure you might have to call someone in support, but just maybe prompt them and let them know, like, hey, I need to implement this new law. I need to pay someone, but I need to be able to track it differently. And if you're the person who's processing that payroll, it's going to be really important to know hours that they actually worked and hours that you're actually paying them under this new law. So if it's actually reasons for 4, 5, and 6, that is going to be 2/3 their regular pay, but it's only up to $200 per day. So depending on how much you pay people, it would only be up to that certain amount. And then in total for the 2 weeks, you wouldn't pay them more than $2,000. Now, here's where it gets just a tad bit trickier. As an employer, you can decide if you would like to allow them, the employee that is, if they have any kind of vacation or sick leave or personal time or PTO, whatever you call that, you can allow someone to supplement. If they're only getting paid 2/3, you can allow them to supplement in so that they are whole, that 1/3. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a tracking thing. A lot of the systems are sophisticated enough these days that you could track it with different pay codes, but you're not required to allow that. It's just an option. But what I will say is that if you allow it for one employee, I would definitely make sure you're allowing it for all of your employees, because employees are great like that. They'll definitely let you know if they feel something is unfair. They'll find out some way, somehow, and they will let you know about it. And I'll back up just a little bit because I do think I forgot to say, so if you're paying someone under reasons 1, 2, or 3, their regular pay, it's up to $511. That's a pretty high pay rate. So just, there's probably not that many people that are going to hit that high of a threshold. But just, I put it in there because it is part of kind of the law and how it's written. So if you're paying someone full pay for the 2 weeks under this sick leave, you just won't go over the $5,000 amount. Or if it's reasons 4, 5, and 6, there's a different pay. Hopefully that, I'm trying to make it as clear as I can. And then on the other side, the emergency family medical leave, it's only reason number 5. They do have kind of that 2-week waiting period, but they also qualify for paid sick leave under that first 2 weeks. So it is not really a waiting period, but they're just calling it something different. So it's paid sick leave first for reason number 5, and then they move over into emergency family medical leave. Bless you, Susie. And then you go into reason number 5 through the emergency family medical leave, if that makes sense. So if they're caring for a minor child at home and it's a child that is school age and or they're normally cared for, great. The employees, you can also require that your employees certify that they're the only person or they're the normal person that is available to provide for the child or the children in the home. And I'll just give you a quick little example, and then I think I saw Craig, I think you had a question, so I'll address that here in just a 1 minute. But this is something that I've seen come up just recently, where let's say it's typical, let's say we have a mom and a dad kind of household. And not that that's every household, but for this example, I had an employee come to me and say, my wife has been carrying the burden because my job had been more demanding this entire time. And now her job is kind of suffering, and asking if we can start to share the burden because they have a couple little ones at home. So now I'm starting to work with him and allowing him to actually take some time off so that he can care for his child and help his wife carry that burden. So just know that you may need to negotiate a little bit. You may need to just work things out with your employees. Just understand that everyone, this is the first time anyone's really ever had to deal with this, including you as a business owner, and that it is definitely, coming into play. And then if you typically have, if the children in the household are over the age of 14, and it's customary for them to be able to be at home all by themselves without any care of any parents whatsoever, and now all of a sudden you have an employee coming to you saying that, oh, well, I really need to be there for my children and you need to pay me through this new law. I would ask for a little bit more information. I wouldn't necessarily jump right on that request and just kind of say, oh, absolutely. I would want a little bit more information, just kind of like, why now when it's always been okay? Your kids have always been on their own. Maybe there's an underlying issue that you were not aware of, but maybe just see if you can get a little bit more information on that. Okay, so Craig asking if I can explain the 2 weeks. So Craig, are you referring, you can unmute if you want. Are you referring to the 2 weeks under the paid sick leave? Is that?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm referring to that.
Okay, so let's say you have an employee come to you and say, or give you a letter or anything and say, my roommate in my household just tested positive, and I live there, we hang out together, and I don't have any symptoms yet, but I'm worried that I've been exposed, and I just got a phone call from the Gallatin Valley Health Department telling me that I now needed to quarantine at home for 2 weeks. So
Okay.
they would then be paid under that 2-week period.
Okay.
Does that help clarify?
A little bit. So, like, let's say, for example, we have a great staff member. She feels like she's sick. Decides, you know what, I'm not going to come into work. Calls me up, says, hey, I'm not going to come in. I need to go get a test. Goes and gets a test. Test come back negative. What do I do with the 3 days that she's out doing that?
I would say for the 3 days she was out during that period, you could do a couple different things. So you could pay her because she was seeking a medical diagnosis, and that would be, gosh, I think that's reason number 3. So it would be regular pay under reason number 3. And then, yeah, thanks, Susie. So experiencing symptoms and seeking medical diagnosis. And then here in the next little bit, I'll show you how you get the tax credit for that. So you're basically going to be offsetting your IRS tax liability when you submit, like when you,
My 941.
after you've, whoops, sorry, go ahead.
When I just submit my 941.
Or even before that, depending on when you process your tax liability after each of your payrolls, depends on if
okay.
you're,
Do it even right. You can do it right then too, huh?
You can do it right then. Yep. So you're not, it's not necessarily affecting your cash flow.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and then I would definitely document that that's what occurred. And I created a template if anyone is also interested. Unfortunately, I can't give it out to everybody for free, but you know, I've just been charging $25 for my template. If anyone is interested, I'm not here to sell you anything, but I do have a template where I created all the criteria for all of these different leave types and pay types. And then I provide you with like a kind of like a spreadsheet, if you will, of if it's these reasons, this is how much you pay. And so your employees kind of know, and it gives you guidance too. So if anybody needs a leave form, just know that I can provide that to you as well, if that's something, because this is definitely something you would want to document in that type of situation. And then I would make sure you get, when that employee submits that documentation to you, you would want to get some sort of document that she went to the doctor and did get a test, and that luckily, good thing that it was negative. But I'm glad that she's not sick. So I'd much rather someone be, you know, a little bit more cautious than have them say, oh, it'll be okay. I'll just push through, and then it turn around to be positive.
So Kari, that was one of my questions, is can we ask them for that doctor's note?
Yes.
And we've been calling the county to make sure the county actually called, because we've had a little bit of facetiousness going on.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's been working. And then my
Good.
other question is what if an employee chooses to apply for unemployment instead?
I'll
Or
get into
is
that.
it an instead? Okay.
Yeah, I'll get into that. Because they wouldn't, if you're paying them, that would be fraud.
Right.
They can't get paid by you and get paid unemployment.
Right. Okay.
And double dip. Yeah. But it's a good question. And it's good for us to kind of be, I guess, passing along this information to our employees too. Because I feel like a lot of times employees they don't understand the systems. And they're not necessarily trying to be malicious, but they're kind of like, maybe I'll just try it and see what happens. And then not realize that, ooh, I just committed fraud. Ooh, that's kind of a big deal. And yeah, and then that can be taxes, penalties, and fees if they have to pay back that money. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, Susie. Awesome, thanks. Again, this is kind of where we go into how would someone ask for a leave of any type, really. You can certainly if you have a leave form that you use now, you can certainly just add kind of FFCRA or paid sick leave or emergency family medical. You can kind of modify something that you have already. That's certainly an option. And then just write down an exact reason out of these slides when you get them, if that makes a little bit more sense for you. You can create a special type of leave form. You can get the one I created, totally up to you. Just keep in mind and maybe just consider being a little bit more flexible in regards to kind of doctor's notes. I know our county has gotten really good about, you know, I actually had to request some forms from employees that were having to self-isolate, and I just wasn't able to get them from the employee, or they just weren't coming through. So I contacted the woman directly and I got them in an instant. She's like, absolutely, here you go. Here's all the information. Call me if you need me, kind of thing. But doctor's offices, I'm not sure how overwhelmed they are or not, but you are, as an employer right now, you are able to ask if someone is testing positive or negative. Where before, I know employers, that's kind of always been like this gray area where you're not necessarily asking them for, you know, medical information, but we are asking them because it's the greater good. You guys are kind of required to provide a safe workplace, and someone coming in who's testing positive, that would not be creating a safe workplace. So, Susie, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Thanks. Okay. So now we've figured out what type of pay it is, what kind of leave they're requesting. We know how much we're going to pay them. And now we need to take the tax credit. So it is dollar for dollar tax credit amounts. depending on your payroll software or payroll system, some systems actually do your tax reporting and your tax payments on your behalf. So if that's the case, just make sure they know that you're having to pay someone under this law, and they'll automatically do that credit for you. Just make sure you're communicating that with them, and give them a couple of days like heads up if it's possible before you process payroll, because I know some of them kind of need a little bit of a, I'm not sure what they have to do on the back end, but they might need a little bit more leeway time than they normally would. If you need to actually download the form and kind of submit that, depending on the software or what you're told to do, like I'm not sure how QuickBooks necessarily operates. I'll be finding out soon enough, I'm sure. I know it is IRS Form 7200. That is the exact form that you'll need. There are definitely a few pages of instructions that go along with that, and you can certainly submit it. It does, on the form itself, it kind of talks about, here's my gross payroll, here's my overall tax liability, and this is how much I paid someone through either sick leave or the emergency family medical leave. So it kind of walks you through it a little bit. The good thing is that it's up to those daily totals and those dailies amounts, and your health insurance. If you have group health insurance for all of your employees, the employer portion of that, let's say you pay 50% and the employee pays 50%, you can also offset that cost. I believe it's just for the individual or the individuals that you're paying. It wouldn't be your entire invoice necessarily of how much you're paying, but just the cost for that individual, just to kind of help you out. But it does cover that dollar for dollar federal taxes, if that makes sense. It's probably a little bit easier if you see the form. I'm a visual person, and that's definitely where that falls.
So is it just a credit on the taxes and not the actual pay?
So it actually, let's say your payroll, your federal tax liability is $5,000, and you had to pay someone $1,500. It's going to take 5,000 minus 15. So it's a tax credit. So you pay less in your payroll tax liability. Does that answer your question?
I believe so. I think I was more so like, is it just offsetting my portion of taxes that I am paying on the employee's behalf, or is it just a credit that is like total pay? Like if his paycheck was $1,500 and he was sick under those conditions for that period of time, I would just get a credit of $1,500.
That's my understanding. I haven't actually gone through the process or seen, like I've seen the form, but I haven't gone through the process myself just yet. But when I looked it up a few months ago, when it first came out, that was my understanding, and reading through all the instructions, is that it was a dollar for dollar credit. So as an employer, I'm going to be out that $1,500. I get to reduce my tax liability for $1,500.
Okay.
Because they also talk about if what I've paid out is more than the liability that I'm owed, then I can carry forward a credit into future payrolls as well. So that's when I was reading through that, that's what made me believe that it was the gross earnings and the taxes on that side. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so unemployment. And I brought this up because I've had this situation also, where I know a couple of employees who still aren't necessarily, like they're a full-time employee, but they're still working reduced hours. And so they're getting partial paychecks, they're getting partial unemployment, And of course, they're now still getting that FPUC, so that additional $600 that's automatically kicking in too through unemployment, at least through the end of July anyway. And so now what's happening is that you're paying them, and they can still apply for unemployment at the reduced hours as long as they are making sure they're reporting that they're not working, right? There's 0 hours worked, but that they are being paid through FFCRA and they do have wages coming in. So I would say they could still have unemployment, but if they're full-time for you and you're paying them full-time, they're not going to be eligible for unemployment. And I do also think that in order to be on unemployment, I'm not sure completely because some of the rules have changed a little bit, but if they're sick and they can't work, they're unavailable and unable to work, I'm not sure if unemployment would be able to pay them anyway. I would have to really dig into that, but I would think right now that might be a possibility. You know, I don't necessarily have like a solid, this is how it works kind of answer.
So they are not able to choose unemployment. They have to be paid by us.
At least for the first 2 weeks.
Okay. And that's what I didn't know. And so, well, I don't know. We're kind of a mess now, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, you figure it out.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I've got some more information in here, but just so you know, if your business is forced to close down or shut down and you have to lay some more employees off, then you know, that paid leave would then stop. Yeah. And so you wouldn't be required to pay someone on leave if you were if your business was closed or if you were forced to lay more people off. And then I just gave some information right now on just unemployment, just in general. Their waiting period is waived. They can expand to 39 weeks, and then that's the website too, just to provide some more information on that. Was there a question about another question about unemployment?
I have questions about this because we laid off a number of employees before April 1st.
Okay.
And say all of them have actually been offered their jobs back. What's the reason? Like I have one employee though that is choosing not to work, so because she has to stay home with her son.
Okay.
I guess I don't know where all this fits in.
So if you're offering her a job back, and the reason why she can't, like it's open and available and she can't come back to work, then I would say that would almost qualify her for reason number 5, and that 2/3 of pay, because she's required to stay home with her child.
So we struggle with this because they kind of choose not to, like childcare is available, they're choosing not to.
Yeah, I'm having the same problem here too.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, then that's a totally different story.
Yeah.
Then they can continue to try and get unemployment, you know, as long as that's kind of moving forward for them. But yeah, if childcare is an option, and they're choosing not to use or utilize that option, then I would say they wouldn't qualify under that reason number 5.
Okay.
But if there is no option for whatever reason, then they would qualify.
So what's the reason as a business owner that we would keep them on this FFCRA versus unemployment if work really is kind of up in the air? Like we have some flexibility.
So in other words, like you want someone to come back to work, but don't necessarily have full time, and they would be reduced hours.
I mean, we can give people full time, but maybe they'd be sitting around a little bit.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I guess. See, because this didn't exist when we did lay people off. Like we have a lot of moms and so forth, and so it just made sense to lay people off because then they could still get a paycheck.
Right. And if you already laid them off and didn't have them come back, like if they're not a current employee and they're on unemployment now, you can keep them there. like that. It's when you bring them back, now they're an employee again,
Yeah.
then that's where this law actually comes into play. It's only if they're currently working for you.
Okay, so say that going back to the 30 days, say that I do have my whole staff back, and then one person starts feeling sick, even though they had unemployment for that amount of time and they were job attached, does that 30 days still count if they?
The 30 days only comes into play if it's reason number 5. So the 30 that,
Okay.
or excuse me, they have to be employed for 30 days
Yeah.
under the emergency family medical leave, and
Yeah.
then 2-week waiting period.
Okay.
So they would, if they've started working for you again and they've only worked for you for 2 weeks, they still are eligible to be paid under the paid sick leave,
Okay.
because it's any employee currently working.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, next slide, Susie. Yeah, so kind of break it all down. Again, this law went into effect April 1st. We're expecting it will expire the end of this year. It's only current employees who are affected by COVID-19. 2 types of paid leave, 6 reasons. There's a tax credit, and yeah, hopefully all of that information, just kind of trying to break it down and make it pretty simple for people to digest a little bit. And yeah, I know I definitely want to be respectful of people's time, and I know we're about 2 minutes before 3 o'clock. So I know the next slide is my contact information. If you have some scenarios or situations you really kind of want to just bounce off, and what do we do with this situation? Or if something in the future comes up and you're like, oh, I just don't know what to do. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll do my best to help you out. And if I don't have the answer, I'll try and research, because I like learning all these new things and staying on top of it all. That's my personal cell phone number, so if you need that, and I'll just kind of open it up to any more questions.
Thanks, Kari. That was awesome. Really helpful.
Good. I'm glad. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's good to see.
Hey, Kari.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know of any resources for learning more about filing that tax credit? I do all that myself here, and so all of this is new, of course, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. I'm trying to manage, all the documentation pieces of what's going on, but I haven't physically gone through the act of completing a 941, as well as doing all the, the 720 and all that sort of stuff like you're referring to. So do you have any resources, or should I just reach out to an accountant? Or?
Yeah, I mean, if you have an accountant that you already work with, that would probably make sense. I would imagine that they're keeping up on this as well. But if you don't, I have a couple different accountants that I work with in Bozeman, if that's where you're based. So if you need to go,
I was referred to this session by one, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That makes me feel good. Yeah, and I'm also happy if you want to reach out to me directly. We can kind of pull up that form, or give me some time to re-pull up that form and look at it again, and let's troubleshoot. Let's figure it out, because I'm going to have to figure it out by next week, because I'm going to have to go through it for a client. So yeah, we'll figure it out together.
Sweet.
All right. Perfect.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It sounds like we're going to be doing some follow-up. I'm going to be sending a PDF of all these slides Like I said, this will be recorded and on our website in the next few days if you've got questions about that. If you, I will also be sending out a copy of the Notice of Rights poster so that you guys all have that updated one. And then please do reach out to Kari if you want access to that template that she was referring to. Again, we're not here to sell anyone anything, but if that's a helpful thing, that is something that Kari has come up with on her own. And so she's welcome to do whatever she wants with her own forms. But then just keep in touch with us if you have any other questions. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Stay safe
Bye.
out there.
Thanks so much.